Shwmae Year 9, we're going to be looking at landscape photography in today's smartphone photography lesson. First off, Dydd Goel Dewi Hapus. Happy St. David's Day, everyone. You're in for a treat for today's lesson. We're going to be focusing on all things Welsh. Today's lesson will celebrate our Welsh heritage. And we're going to get inspired first by looking at Welsh artists whose work are also influenced by Welsh landscapes. We're then going to create our own photography of Welsh environments using the rule of thirds and leading lines. We will then develop a photo by including a line from the Welsh National Anthem that represents our Welsh identity. And we're going to use digital typography to include this within our landscape photography. I want us to start off by considering what it means to be Welsh. So I'm going to give you a minute and I'd like you to write down 3 or more examples of things that make you Welsh. So your minute starts now. So what does being Welsh mean to you? It could be our history. We've got a rich history here in Wales. Our flag, our dragon, our national flower. Our Welsh language is a massive one. That is something individual to us. Our rugby team, with some passionate rugby supporters out there. Our Welsh choirs. We're well known for our singers. Or it could be our places in Wales. We've got fantastic beaches and castles alike, our TV shows, or even our foods. Again, this task was completely personal, but it's just to get you thinking about what it takes to be Welsh and what makes us Welsh. So as I mentioned, today we're going to be celebrating our Welsh heritage by studying the Welsh landscape around us. So I wanted us to consider the works of these Welsh artists who have, like us, been inspired by our Welsh environments. Here's a small selection of Welsh painters whose works focuses on Welsh landscapes. Feel free to include links to these artists within your annotation notes. It's always good to show that you've been inspired by artists' work, even though we work in photography. Even though these are paintings, you could take inspiration by the use of colours, shapes and the compositions. All these are elements which are used within photography as well, so take advantage of that. There's no wonder that many photographers have also been inspired by the Welsh environment around us. We have so many diverse environments to take inspiration from mountains and valleys to rivers and oceans. You're literally never far from a spectacular view when you're in Wales. So I want our photographs for today's task to take inspiration from the places around us. Capture the places that are special to you and capture them in a creative way. Now, I know all our situations are going to be different, and if you are able to walk up to the nearest mountain or the river or the park to get an amazing view, then that's brilliant. That's exactly the type of photo that we need. But if you can't, that's absolutely fine. This task is about photographing places that are special to you, places that can represent your Welsh heritage. So alternative places, if you're not able to go to an amazing view place, you can look for photos maybe in the streets. The valleys are well known for their iconic street scenes of rows and rows of terraced houses, and that could work perfectly for this task. There may be sculptures close to where you live, or street signs near your house. Or there might be, if you can't go anywhere at all, maybe in your garden, and try some close-up shots. Like I said, I know we all got different circumstances, and I just want you to think creatively and work with the resources you have available to you. So use your imagination and do what you think is best for this task. The idea for today's lesson is to take our landscape photo and add some typography on top of it. So I've pulled these examples from the internet just to show you how typography can work within a landscape photograph. There's so many different ways that we are going to be able to incorporate the typography into the frame. If you see the first frame, for example, they've actually added in a little reflection under the word explore, which works really nicely. Or, for example, in the second image, where they've put the word October, they've actually cut out some of the letters to make it look like the words are interacting within the frame, which I love. And there's also editing styles that, like in the last image, uses the actual image to fill in the letters themselves, which also works really nicely. So there's loads of things we can do here, but our main focus for today is to capture our landscape photo and then to add in the typography. So you can use these for inspiration for your work as well, if you want. We're going to be working with the Welsh National Anthem today, and we'll be choosing one line from the anthem which inspires us the most, and then incorporating that line into our photo. Now, don't worry, I'm not going to start singing. I've just put the lyrics on the screen now so we can see their English translations. I want you to study these and pick a line from the anthem which can inspire your photo. Now, there's some beautiful words in this anthem. It's poetic and naturally inspirational. So I want us to really celebrate those meanings during our task today. I'm going to drop these translations into teams as well, so you can take a closer look at them. So to break down our task for today, I want us to first take a photo inspired by our chosen line from the anthem. And this photo should be a celebration of Welsh environment. So like I said, it's up to you where you take the photo. It's got to be something personal to you. We're then going to edit and insert our chosen lyrics and develop the typography so both text and photo work harmoniously together within the frame. And then finally, as ever, I'm going to need some annotation notes just describing your processes and your decisions made throughout the task. Now, when you're taking your photo, there's some things I want you to keep in mind. First off, pick somewhere that is special to you. Somewhere that you think represents a true Welsh environment. Now, this could be a park, which is close to your house, or a walking line or trail. It could be some sheep on a mountain, or anything, a sculpture, a street which is special to you. This is your personal representation of your Welsh heritage. So it's going to be a personal reflection, and I really want you to take control of your photograph. But some things I'd like you to keep in mind: the rule of thirds and leading lines. So you can see both of these in effect on the images I took on the screen now. And also consider the lighting and colour within your frame. The time of day which you take your image is going to have a big impact. If you wait until sunset, you might get these nice glowy tones. It depends when you can go out, that's up to you again. And another thing to keep in mind while you're taking your photo is the shape and space within your frame. Remember, our next step is going to be our next step will be to add typography into the frame. So you need to allow space for that to happen. If you look at the images on the screen, you can see that there is space there for me to work with. So keep that in mind. as well as the colour, like I mentioned, the darker and lighter areas are really going to help bring the text out as well. So you want a varied colour scheme within your frame. I'm sure we're all going to have different experiences when it comes to this task. Some may be more familiar with this process than others, but I want us all to have a go. We're going to be using a web app called Photopia, which is basically a free version of online Photoshop. And we're using this because it's easy to access for everyone. So you can use your laptop, your computer, or even your tablet or phone. Although it is a bit trickier on a phone, so if you do have access to a laptop, please opt for that. I'll take you through the process in the next slide, but first I want to highlight the main things to consider when adding typography into our photo. Firstly, we should consider the style of font you pick. Does it represent the meanings and the feel of the words? So you might want a bold or a curvy font. There's loads of styles to choose from, so that's another decision which is completely up to you. Then think about the placement of the text within the frame, as this is going to have a huge impact on the outcome. We want the text to complement and enhance the landscape, so it should work harmoniously together, and it shouldn't just be stuck on top of the image. We want it blended in. And lastly, I want you to think about the colour and the size, as this is going to impact as well. So you'll see on the next slide that I've chosen colours which are used within the photo, and I'll show you how to do that on the next slide. So we start off by typing in photopia.com and open from computer. Then we can select our image, and that puts our image into the website. Our first step is to take our lyric and decide where to put it within the frame. Don't worry, I've broken down how to do this in a Word document which you can find on Teams. The point of this first step is to see if you need to break down the words into 1 or 2 parts, and I really want you to try and find out what position works best within the frame. Once you are happy with the position, you can then choose a font. There are so many different styles of fonts available to you. It's really hard to cipher them down. There's so many to choose from, as you can see. But just pick a font which really represents the meaning of the words. So it might be a bold font, or a curvy font might work better. That's up to you. Choose what you think works best. Make a note of the style font, so all the fonts are named. Make a note of the style of font you like, and then we're going to go and put our words in word by word. And the reason for this is because it creates new layers for each word. And that's going to give us control about where we can put them within the frame. So as you can see, you can change the size, the angle of the word, and being able to have this control over each of the words individually is really going to help us to put the words in the frame, so we can really emphasize those leading lines within the frame. So as you can see, I'm putting them in word by word. Again, this is just to help position them easily. So a good tip on changing the positions, you can hold down the shift key, which keeps it in position and keeps the right dimensions. Zooming in is also a really good tool to use to have more control of the position of the word. And I've also mentioned in the worksheet with the instructions, when you hold down on the command key and change those little arrows that makes it bigger or smaller, you can warp the word itself, and this can help you create depth with the words as well, to really enhance the depth within the frame. So you'll be able to see that towards the end of the video. Firstly, I'm just making sure all my words are positioned nicely within the line. So you can see that I'm using that stone wall at the foreground of the frame to help me position the second line of my chosen lyric. Our next stage, once you're really happy with every position, oh there we go, that's the warping effect there. So once you're happy with the position, you've got to make sure everything is in line and exactly where you want it to be, because our next stage is going to flatten the layers. And once you flatten the layers, you're not going to be able to control the words in the same way. So get everything in the perfect position first, and then you're going to select your layers and merge layers, which you'll see in a little bit. I've also rubbed out part of the upper line just to really make sure it's working with the frame, so it looks as though it's actually coming out of the mountain almost. You don't have to do this, but it's just a little something extra. Okay, so I'm happy with my position now. This is me selecting the layers, and you can do this by holding down on the Shift key and right click and merge layers. And as you can see, that's grouped together those words and created one layer. This is going to help us add the colour, because it's going to treat the entire line as one layer. You double click on the layer to open up layer style. And then there's so many options in there. Feel free to have a play about with all of them. Like I said, there are instructions on the Word document in Teams. But all I want you to do is find a colour that complements the frame. I've gone for a gradient effect. You can play about with that. You can play about with the opacity, which means how transparent it is on the frame. Or you can keep it simple and just choose one colour. That's fine as well. This is your work. So again, selecting the layers, merge layers, and then that creates one layer. And then you double click the layer, and then you can control the colour. So what I found really helpful was to select my own colours, and you can do this by clicking on any part of the frame. I found this was helpful because it really ties in the colour themes and creates a nice final effect. Like I said, you want the words and the photos to work harmoniously together. So this is a perfect way to do it, by selecting the colours. Now you'll be able to see in this video that I wasn't happy with the first colours. It's a bit too dark and blends in a bit too well. So I've gone back to edit that out later on. But the good thing about working with layers is that you can go back and change them whenever you want. If you change your mind, you can experiment later on. It's a great thing about keeping them separate. So there's loads of extra options you can do in the layer style window. You don't need to know them all now. I just want you to get used to working with Photopia. This is so similar to Photoshop that by the time you get back into school, you should be familiar with it then. So this is when I realised I weren't happy with the colour. It blends in a bit too well with our wall. So I've gone back in and I've decided to go a bit lighter until I was happy with the colours. And you can pick all the colours, whichever you think works well. So once you're happy with your colours, you should be able to just, I've changed the opacity again. You can edit and play about with all these. You don't need to know them right now. So if you go up towards File, and then you can just export or save your image. And you want to be saving it as a JPEG. You don't want to save it as a PSD. All the PSD is that it saves the layers, where we don't want the layers, we want a flat image. So save it as a JPEG, please, guys. So this is my final image. You can see I've used 2 separate fonts. I've used a curvy one and a bold impact one. And the lyric I've chosen is the first line of the national anthem. My hen wlad fan had I and anoil I me. The land of my fathers is dear to me. I just think that's such a poetic, lovely line that it inspired me. This photo is from a walk I done the other day up a mountain, and I really like the way I've used the typography within the frame that really complements those leading lines. I also like the depth within the image. There's a clear foreground with the spiky grass in the front, the hill, the line of the stone wall, the top of the mountain, and then the valley in the distance and the next mountain. It's just a really dramatic image with lots of depth, and I think that really highlights the words and the meaning of the words as well. They work well together as a set. So this is the sort of feedback that I want within your annotated notes as well. Give me your reflections. Why have you made the decisions you've made? Why is it important and personal to you? Tell me about the style of fonts, why you put them in that location within the frame. Tell me everything about it. Here are 2 more examples of photos I've taken and typography within the frames. I just wanted to show you more examples, really, that it could be any sort of image, and the typography, the way you position it in the frame, you be creative with it. Put words on the side or make them bend in the middle. Do what you want and show me how far you can take it. Make the colour stand out, make it blend in, and just make it your own, really. I want you to be really creative and really push, show me what you can do. For today's lesson, you should take a photograph to represent a Welsh environment. Shoot it in a creative way, considering the rule of thirds, leading lines, light, colour, space, all those elements we practiced last week. Then you should include a chosen line from the Welsh national anthem to edit into your photograph in a way that complements and works with the image. The typography should show consideration of placement of text within the frame, style of font and colours that also works with the rest of the image. So guys, please hand in your final image with your annotated notes and just enjoy the lesson, make it your own and work with what you got available to you.